What's going on, everybody? Welcome in. It's the Wager Alarm live stream. I'm your host, Howard Bender. With me, of course, Craig Mish. It's time to get down and dirty with some National League win totals. Craig, how are you?
Doing very well. Looking forward to capping off our week of season win totals. American League, you can go back and watch on demand. I sure did. And then, of course, the National League this week. Next week, we're going to dive into some of the individual player props. The Westgate put out home run props for, I think, like every player in the big leagues. It's like down to like 12 and a half home runs on some guys. So that'll be fun as well. There are wins, over-unders on wins. I don't know how good I feel about doing that for pitchers. I feel like that's...
No. I'll stay away from that. That's way too arbitrary.
And there's some other interesting props there, too. Combination props this year. Will the Dodgers and Angels both make the postseason? Will the Nationals and Astros both make the postseason? Like, interesting combo props, too. So, there's a lot to get to. And then, honestly, by this time next week, pitchers and catchers will be on the field. There'll be news every day with baseball, news with wagering, news with fantasy baseball as well. So, this is it. We're here. Baseball season is here, starting on Tuesday next week.
Well, that's the thing. And, I figured this was a great time for us to do this. And I did some conversation about this on Fantasy Alarms on Sirius XM today, because this is the weekend where everybody's going to flock to Vegas to lay down these wagers before pitchers and catchers report, before these, before teams start deciding on certain things, which may or may not have an effect on some of these totals. So this is where you want to kind of jump in on it now, at least the few ones that we feel really confident about. So
sure.
Let's dive right in. You want to dive right in? Let's dive right in.
Sure. Let's do it. All right. Alphabetical order, division?
No, I'm going to go divisions here. All right.
Let's do it.
And I'll tell you what, I'm going to start off with the Atlanta Braves.
All right.
Right, 97 wins last year.
Yep.
The total right now I'm seeing from the Westgate is 90.
Mm-hmm.
So a 7 does it though? Is it 7-game drop? Is it just the loss of Donaldson? What are we looking at here?
Yeah, and first of all, let's also keep in mind that the Westgate, while it is fantastic, and the Superbook is probably the best place in Las Vegas to bet on sports, clearly every book has different numbers here. So if we give a 90, somewhere else could have an 89, 89.5, someone could have a 90.5. There's variance with all of these. Mm-hmm. And it's just depending on the kind of action that the place has. So, and the online lines are different also. But yeah, that being said, so I kind of feel like the loss of Keuchel and bringing in Cole Hamels is a wash, right? Like I don't think that there's too much of a difference there. Do you?
More than I like Keuchel.
Yeah.
Not much, but pretty much a wash.
Right. The addition of Will Smith, I think, was really big. I mean, I really like that for Atlanta, too, so I think that's a positive. Of course, losing Donaldson is a negative, but if Austin Riley does what he did last year, not to say that he will, because he really kind of bottomed out last year, the key number, I think, for Atlanta, something that's not repeatable, which is going to be harder to get them to 97 wins, is they were 46-30 in the National League East. They were also pretty good in the one-run game stat, which is a big stat for me when I look at this stuff. But, Howard, I don't see them going 46-30 again against the Mets, against the Phillies, against the Nationals, and I think the Marlins will be a little bit better too. So I think that has to normalize a little bit. So I would lean over the 90, but I wouldn't do anything on it. But I would lean toward the Braves being better than 90 wins. I don't see them 7 wins worse than last year, even with the loss of Donaldson.
No, neither do I. I'll lean on the over as well. Not by a lot. I mean, what, 92, 93? I wouldn't be surprised to see that at all. So I'm fine with that one there. Defending champ Washington Nationals, 93 wins on the season last year, 90.5 right now. And, it's kind of funny when you say this, when you talk about the fact that the division record, you look at the wins totals for the Braves, the Nats, the Mets, and the Phillies, and they're all real close to each other, which kind of just shows you at least, the parity we expect within the division.
Yeah, and the other part of this, too, is you look at teams that have won the World Series, and how do they usually fare the following year? And you have to ask yourself, should we just be straight fading the World Series champions? You would have succeeded last year with Boston. I believe you would have succeeded the year after that, even though Houston had a really good year. Houston may have gone over their win total the following year, but of course they got knocked out. They didn't win the World Series. You would have succeeded on the Cubs and 2. In general, I think that it's probably at least best to lean on the under here. I don't know that I would go either way with this, but the World Series champion does tend to fall a little flat. It is, I think now baseball has become the hardest sport to repeat because you're taking your baseball team all the way basically into November. Remember, most baseball teams end their season in September, and the ones who have just basically quit are ending it in mid-September. So usually a late start for those teams. It really affected Boston last year, not having Price, not having Sale at the beginning of spring. They didn't even throw them until the end. I think that was a mistake. I'll be curious to see how Washington operates in the spring, Howard. So if I'm a bettor of Washington and I want to bet on the over, what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait till they report. I'm going to see what Dave Martinez has to say. I'm going to see how he ends up approaching this thing. Because as much as, Alex Cora, with everything that's being said about him negatively, positively, whatever, I think the key mistake that they made was holding back their players in spring training. They got out of the gates horribly last year and had no shot to get over that win total. By the way, there are some spots that has this at 89.5 and 89 even, but I would lean under on the Nationals.
Okay. Yeah, we're still talking about a range. It's, the swing is probably no more than a game and a half, I wouldn't think.
No.
Depending on which books you're looking at. Mets, 86 wins last year. 86.5 is the range. It's what it's at the Westgate right now. Did some all right things to kind of maneuver around. Nothing really great, though, for me as far as what they did. I kind of feel like we're going to see some pullback from Pete Alonso. But yet, I kind of think that Michael Conforto still has that capability of taking that step forward. For me, this is a real key in on the middle of this rotation. We know DeGrom, we know Syndergaard, but the question is what's Stroman going to do? They bring in Porcello, and so yeah. I mean, again, this isn't one that I'm interested in at all. No lean either way, actually.
I'd have a light lean on the over, and even with it being 86 or even 87 in some spots. A lot of the advanced metric sites like Fangraphs have the Mets very good this year. Top 6 or 7 team overall in all of Major League Baseball this year because of their pitching staff, which they consider to be top 5. Now, again, their pitching staff is very deep on paper, but you don't know how that's going to work out based on injuries, of course. Look, Cano had a horrible year, especially at the beginning of the year. Edwin Diaz had a bad year too. You're right. There's got to be some pullback on Pete Alonso. But I think this could be a year that the Mets get close to sneaking in the postseason or maybe even get in. I would lean toward going over on them. And I like kind of where their direction is headed. I'm not sure what their future is going to look like. Certainly they made a pretty bad trade, it looks like, there by getting Cano and Diaz. But those guys are coming off unspeakable years for them. They would have never thought that would have been the case. So I'll lean a little bit on the over on the Mets.
Have you heard anything about the baseballs that they're going to be using this year? As far as I think it was Diaz who had complained about the fact that the laces were they weren't raised as much last year as they were. He was having trouble gripping the ball, and I believe that was something that they had talked about with this year's product. Have you heard anything about that at all?
No, I haven't. No. I mean, Rawlings is now owned by Major League Baseball, so certainly they can make the balls however they want. My guess is we're going to see less home runs this year. I don't know. I just have a feeling that that baseball is going to try and pull back a little bit on that. It was good for the game, but with all the investigation they did after the season, and they did come to the conclusion that there were batches of balls that had, I think it was less drag, so the balls, left faster. But to answer your question, no, I don't know the answer to that yet.
All right. Well, there you go. So you're slight lean on the over there.
Slight lean on the over with the Mets, yes.
All right. Phillies, 85.5 is the Vegas total. 81 wins last night. Bryce Harper certainly couldn't be this bad again, could he? Come on.
Maybe, but they add Didi Gregorius,
who I love. Yep.
They add Zach Wheeler, and so that gives them a nice 1-2 punch at the top of the rotation. The only way that the Phillies, I think, don't go over this number is if they do nothing and they don't add anything in terms of pitching before the end of the season. I think the Phillies are built to win right now. I think that they're going to be forced to win right now with all the money that they're paying all of these guys, and they'll give Real Muto an extension soon too. And the other part of this is that there are very few managers in baseball. We talked about there's one in the American League. no matter how you feel about Joe Madden, you got to add 3 or 4 wins to that win total at the end based on him. You got to do the same thing with Philadelphia, Howard. You have to do it with Joe Girardi. I mean, no matter how you feel about this guy, wherever he goes, there's an instant boost. Every single team that he goes
to. You won't hear any argument from me about
Look everywhere. I mean, the Yankees, he was manager of the year with the Marlins. He's a very good tactical manager.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the Phillies are headed toward an over here. I would lean toward the over on the Phillies too, which would mean I'm leaning toward the over on the Mets. I'm leaning toward the over on the Phillies, and I'm leaning less on the over with the Braves. But this just looks like the best division in the National League. I think it's going to be a very competitive division, and I'll even go over on the last one too.
No, really? The Miami Marlins, 63 is the number. 57 was where they hit last year. Really? You're all in, aren't you?
And just to be clear, as it pertains
all in.
I'm all in. As it pertains to the Marlins, as you guys know, when it comes to doing things throughout the course of the season on a game-by-game basis, and as it pertains to wagering or anything else, I don't have any involvement whatsoever. So I'm just going to give an opinion, as I always do, on the Marlins for those of you who are doing it, but I will not get involved at all because I do cover the team. They had 57 wins last season. Their total is 63 and a half. I saw a 64. The ads for Miami are VR and Dickerson, and those are pretty significant ads, I think. But the problem is they're coming from a zero offense, so they're really not adding VR and Dickerson. And you could say, well, who are they adding them to? They're adding them to nothing, essentially. Brian Anderson was really the only viable offensive option on that team last year. Another player named Garrett Cooper. If you extrapolate his stats over the course of the season, he's like the best first baseman in baseball. 40 home runs, 100 RBIs. He batted .320. He was great. He just was hurt a bunch last year. So, I'm not going to get caught up in with the South Florida here with fans thinking they're going to win 80 games and they're getting ready to compete. That I do not believe. But I do believe they have a young pitching staff that is good, that is improving. And if I'm just simply looking at WAR at the end of the year, and I take Miami's 57, and I add VR, and I add Dickerson, and I add Kinsler to the 9th inning, so they'll have a closer, assumingly. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's 10 wins. So I'm going to say over on Miami, and not by a lot, but I am going to say over. I don't know if I'm going to go on record with them winning 70, but I think it's over 63, 64. I don't think they're going to lose 100.
Are they moving the fences in?
A little bit in right field, yeah.
In right field, okay. Just always something good to know. Always something good to know. All right, so there you go. So that's the NL East. Let's move to the Central because
and by the way, with me, I'm an under guy with almost everything we do, whether it's college pro, and I'm over a lot on the NL East, and I have to be there. I think outside of the Marlins, I think every team has a chance to win that division. I really do. It's a really good division with lots of good pitching, all-stars, Cy Young Award winners, MVPs, best players at their positions in the NL East too. So it's just the way it works out. But I'll have a lot more unders moving forward.
I was just going to say these wins have to come at an expense of somebody. If it's not coming at the expense inside the division, let's go to the outside. Let's go to the Central. Yep. Let's go to the Cardinals. We'll start with them. 91 wins last year. 88.5 is the number that I'm seeing out of the Westgate right now.
I think this division is going to be very competitive, all in the 80s. All in the 80s. I don't see any team really separating themselves. I could see the Cardinals going over. I could also see them going under. They did not do enough for me in the offseason to make me believe that they're they kind of won 90 games by default last year, I feel like. Somehow they caught fire at the end of the season. Ozuna's not a huge loss for them. They did make that trade. They traded Jose Martinez, so he is gone. They get a young pitcher, Liberatore, in return. I don't think that he's part of the mix this year. It almost feels like, Howard, the Central in general, does it feel like they did nothing? Like the whole division just did nothing this year? Was there a critical? Oh, the Reds. The Reds did. So
the Reds did something. I was going to say I like what the Reds are doing, and then and then if you look on the other side, the Pirates,
they really didn't
in a negative way. But no, if you're looking at the Cardinals, I didn't see a whole lot done here, and I think the big key that we have to look at is the outfield, like Tyler O'Neill, Harrison Bader. Dexter Fowler's still here.
I mean, I'm going to assume Edmund is going to play a lot, but you're right. It's more or less the same team as last year. I picked them to win the World Series last year, and I bet that. I'm not going to do that this year. I'm not as bullish on them going into the season. I felt like they would add an Arenado, a Donaldson, a big piece. And truth be told, they are removing 20 home runs and 80 runs driven in from Ozuna. And, unless Dylan Carlson is great, and maybe he will be. I'm not sure. Look, we can't doubt anything. Alvarez and Alonso came up last year and they were great. Right. So maybe Dylan Carlson is that guy from this year. If he is, this is going over because that's a 3 or 4 win player in WAR. But I'm going to pass. My lean is under.
Okay. All right. Brewers, 89 wins last year, 82.5. This is a team that definitely didn't do anything.
You think?
I was like, really?
Let's go back to last year with the Milwaukee Brewers, a team that a lot of people thought would win the division last year. 2019
division with no pitching.
2019 going into that season last year. You had Shaw, you had Aguilar, you had Thames, you had Jeffers, Moustakas, Grandal. All those guys were gone. So now they add Avisail Garcia, Justin Smoke. They had a really good September, which is obviously deceiving. They were 22-8. Their pitching looks really shaky to me. I'm going under 82.5. I'm leaning heavy on the under here. I don't know what Milwaukee's doing.
And let's not forget also Luis Urias. They traded for him with San Diego, broken hamate bone. He's going to be out for a couple of months now and have to deal with him. Listen, Keston Hiura and Christian Yelich seem to be the two guys only that I like on this
it's
team.
Interesting. Some of these totals, they have like 7 or 8 win fallbacks, and the team brings back the same guys. But in this case, you take Yasmani Grandal and Mike Moustakas off the Brewers, and Thames, and you're not really
still 82.5.
Yeah, I'm going to lean under on here.
I'll lean on the under there also. Adrian Hauser, putting all my eggs into that basket.
I don't know what they're doing.
I don't know. I will say I do think Josh Lindblom is a bit of a dark horse this year.
Could be. We don't know enough about him, but could be.
Mm-hmm. Cubbies. Here we go. 84 wins last year, 84.5. Right off the bat right now, I'm definitely leaning on the under. This is a team that's probably going to end up trading Chris Bryant at some point. They didn't do anything else to really improve this offense. And then the pitching, Hendricks is a stable guy. Yu Darvish is up and down. There's not a lot that I love about this, and I think that if you're going to take the under on the Cubs now, you have to do it now as opposed to, this number will drop if they trade Bryant.
Yeah, unless they get back major leaguers, but that doesn't seem to be likely. Look, they won 84 games last year. Their total is 84.5. The big negative for them is losing the manager. We don't know what David Ross is going to be. Maybe he ends up being good, but Madden was a good manager in the regular season for sure. I think the number is spot on. I think this is about where they're going to be, Howard. 83, 84, 85. I don't have a strong opinion on this one.
All right. Then let's pivot over to the Reds. 75 wins last year. 83.5 is the mark right now. There's a lot to like about this team. Obviously there's still a question mark with Votto, but Suarez, Moustakas, they bring in Akiyama from Japan, so he's going to jump in. They signed Castellanos.
Yeah, they added a lot.
The ballpark right there, but now you're talking also Luis Castillo, Trevor Bauer. I don't love Sonny Gray, but for some reason Sonny Gray still always manages to pitch well in Cincinnati. It's one of those, pressure off kind of thing. But I kind of like this team, and I kind of like it's a pretty hefty step. It's an 8.5 game.
That's a huge step
jump.
For the Reds.
It is. But I still see them as like an 85, 86 win team.
It could be. What's interesting is that somebody asked me the other day to take a look at the home run totals and give me the one that I like the most. I'll tell you which one I did. We didn't end up betting it because now we would have lost. Suarez was my favorite one of all. I think Suarez is probably the most underrated player in the National League. This guy's a 40 home run guy every year. That injury, Howard, I'm not going to touch the Reds until I know his status. That's the best player on the team. That is the best player on the Cincinnati Reds. I don't care what anybody says. The guy in the second half of last year was an absolute beast. I think that you pointed out the key there. That's a big jump for any team in baseball to win 9 more games than they did the year before. And I think there's some 84, 84.5 in some other spots. I love what they did offensively. Are we sure that Bauer is going to get back? I'm just there's still enough here for that I kind of look at it and I say that's the number. Do we know what Akiyama is? Honestly, too many unknowns for me with the Reds. I like what they did. The other positive, if you are going to go over, this is a team, again, they get to July 31st, they're going to add players. They're not going to subtract. Even if they're close, they're not going to subtract. So that's a positive, too. So I'm back and forth on this one.
Wow, you are not liking the National League so far. Maybe you'll like it with the Pirates?
We may see this. We may see this a little differently on this one.
72 is the number right now. 69 is what they won last year. Yeah, listen, I like the under on this one here. I think that this is a team that's going to end up giving up. I think that once they start falling out, they're going to lose Adam Frazier. They could end up trading him.
Maybe.
Who knows with Polanco what they're going to do there?
He's a nothing at this point.
Right. So, Chris Archer, bye-bye.
Well, you know what? That's where I think it's interesting, because when you look at the Pirates pitching staff,
mm-hmm.
and you look at the four guys that they have, if you go around, and I'm talking about Archer, Trevor Williams, Musgrove, and let's put Keller in there. Let's call Keller an average pitcher in baseball. Some people think he's going to be an ace. We can't do that with this guy. We don't know. But that starting four is better than like 10 other teams in baseball. And the Pirates total is one of the bottom 5 in baseball. So, look.
Well, see, how is that starting rotation a better 4 than most other teams? I mean, again, you don't know what you're getting in Mitch Keller. Archer has been on the decline. The guy is very, very hittable. Musgrove throws to way too much contact right now in a hitter's era. And Trevor Williams, come see, come saw.
Would it shock you if Archer became an average pitcher? Would it shock you if Musgrove was an average pitcher?
No.
And that's the point, is that it's not as bad as it looks. And look, I'm not going to bet it, but I think that this is about where the numbers should be. The Pirates sometimes will surprise you, and that organization has found ways to scrape out these wins. And I don't think that they are a Baltimore or a Detroit or a Kansas City, or maybe even a Colorado. I think there is a chance that Pittsburgh gets to this number. I like Reynolds, their outfielder. I know that's just one guy on a 25-man roster.
Who's the new GM over here? Because they got rid of Neil Huntington.
I don't recall his name off the top of my head. That's a bad job.
I'm gonna look it up right now. I'm sorry that Ben Cherington. Ben Cherington.
Oh, Ben Cherington, the former Red Sox GM. Yeah.
Right. So
look, they have
in there. You don't think this guy wants to just break this disgustingness down and just put his own stamp on it?
I do, but I see enough talent to get close to 70 wins. It's not a lot. There's enough talent. Josh Bell's a good player. Frazier's a good player. They have some decent players. Kella, I think Kella is probably going to lead the NL, and I think Kella's going to be I don't like the guy, but I think he's going to be a monster this year. I think he's the most under fantasy valued closer in baseball this year. He's going to be.
You don't think his attitude and the fact that every clubhouse he's been in hates his guts?
I think he's going to have a great year. I think he's going to have a great year. They're going to play a lot of close 1-run games, and I think that they're going to win some.
I think they'll play a lot of close 1-run games, but I'm not going to sit there and, I'm not going to mark Kella down as.
It's just, again, I would not put my money on something that, like, you asked me, could you see the Pirates winning 71 games, going 71-91? Absolutely. That's a horrible year for a team, and I could see them doing that. So I'm just going to stay away from it.
Well, fine. I'll fight you later. No problem.
But they will finish last.
They will finish last. I'm going to lean on the under on this one here.
Okay. Now listen, it's the easy way to look at it is to do that. But
yeah, I mean, listen, that's what I'm going to do, and I'm probably going to bet it as well.
Okay, bet it. It's your money.
Bet it.
It's your money.
Yeah, it's fine. You want to give me a couple extra wins? Take some action? Let's go to the West. The Dodgers. Here we go. Dodgers are looking at, so the number's 100.
Yeah, it's 100.5.
Yeah. Okay, 100.5.
Whatever. Look, we all know the Dodgers are going over, but you're not going to bet a team with 100 line. It's just dumb.
Okay.
You don't bet on that. But they're the most dominant team, best team on paper, probably in all of baseball outside of the Yankees. They're going to get Mookie Betts. They got Blake Trinan. Their bullpen's good. Their hitting is great. Their starting pitching is really good. They got kids in the minor leagues. They're probably going to go over, but I won't bet it. I would not lean under on the Dodgers. There's no way.
All right. Pivot to the Diamondbacks then. 85 wins last year, 83.5. They made their team better during the offseason, including adding Starling Marte just a couple of weeks ago.
Yep, my favorite over in the NL will be the Diamondbacks for sure. They won 85 games last year. So explain to me how their total is 83.5. This one is a head scratcher to me. Where did they get worse in the offseason?
They didn't.
I don't get it. They got, if I'm not mistaken, they got Madison Bumgarner. He's still pretty good.
They traded for Zach Gallen, who
Gallen was great at the end.
High on everybody's, Robbie Ray's still there. Luke Weaver. Weaver still has some upside.
They got Cole Calhoun too.
Yeah, I'm not a huge Calhoun guy.
But it's a 2-win player in the outfield for them. They have Ketel Marte. First base probably ain't great, but I mean overall the Diamondbacks look like a playoff team to me. They really do. So this is a pick for me. I'm gonna go over on them. I think they win 87, 88 games. I think they're right there for the playoffs. Look, everyone is just so sold on San Diego. They should be sold on Arizona. Arizona's better than San Diego.
Are they?
Yeah. What makes the Padres better than the Diamondbacks?
Fernando Tatis Jr. Come on,
one guy.
Things sliced bread.
One guy.
No, I'm with you, man. I'm with you. Listen, I'll definitely jump on the over for the Diamondbacks. I like it also.
I like it. I like the over on this.
I like it as well. Padres, 82.5 is the number. 70 wins last year. That's a huge jump, too. 12.5 games.
Huge jump for them.
That's a huge jump. I mean, listen, everybody and their grandma in the fantasy industry is all over Dinelson Lamet. Listen, I think there's talent there, but I mean, they're talking about him like he's like the next Cy Young.
Yeah, he had a lot of strikeouts last year. He still gives up a lot of bombs.
Mm-hmm.
And I was the one that broke the story of him coming to the major leagues 2 years ago on a Sunday night. I'll remember that too. But look, I like the pitcher. I think the Padres are better. That's a huge jump with not a ton added in the offseason. Like, I mean, some decent names, some decent players. And,
Tommy Pham, Jurickson Profar. I
mean, it's okay. You know what it is we're and a new manager. We don't know what Tingler is going to be at all. I know that I have no clue. He's a guy that came in the organization. Look, with the Padres, you're also in a good position if you bet the over if they're close because they're going to go very deep into it. Every year in baseball, we usually see, what would you say, one general manager fired, maybe two. Like that's a pretty big move when that happens. This year, let's remove Houston from the equation because that doesn't really count. So this year it was just Pittsburgh. Was that the only? Was that
right?
The
yeah, Huntington was the only GM who changed.
Well, AJ Preller. Yes, Boston
Red
last
Sox,
yeah, with Dombrowski in the during the season too, right? AJ, this is it for AJ Preller. This is it. I mean, I'm not saying anything that he doesn't know. The Padres have to win games this year. I mean, how long can they go? Preller took over. They added Kemp, and they added Upton, and they added James Shields. They added all these great things. Next year, they tore it all down, and now they're building it back up. I mean, it's been 10 years, right? So the pressure is on. The scapegoat last year was their manager, Andy Green. They fired him, and now it's basically, I think, it's put up or shut up time. So his job's on the line. That's why you like the over, because he ain't playing for the future after this year. They're going to be trying to add whatever they can at the All-Star break to get better. But I'm just not going to. I think this number is right where it is. I think the Padres make a significant jump, but they may jump to 80 wins or 82 wins or 83 wins, and that's not enough for me to be strong on this. So I'll pass.
All right. Colorado Rockies, 74.5 is the number here. 71 wins last year. Again, this is a team. I don't like doing anything with the Rockies. I don't like betting.
Nobody
on the
knows
Rockies.
I know. Nobody has a clue. I don't have a clue either. By the way, here's another GM we probably should. Another GM that also you would have to say at this point is a little bit on the hot seat as well, probably.
Yeah, absolutely. But, I mean, again, you're looking at the personnel, Daniel Murphy, David Dahl, Garrett Hampson, we don't know. And this team never has pitching. Never.
Although 2 years ago, I mean, going into last year, we thought that Freeland and Marquez were real. And
No. We didn't. We didn't. Some people thought Marquez and Freeland were going to be good last year. This guy was not one of them. No.
It's such a shame with the pitching there.
Did not figure out how to pitch at Coors. I mean, come on.
They can for 1 year. Guys get lucky for 1 year at a time.
They get lucky for a year. That's not learning how to pitch at Coors. That's just getting lucky for a year.
Nobody's figured it out. And the Rockies added nothing this offseason. Nothing.
Like, how do you not add ground ball specialists? How do you not do it? They
didn't even add a thing. Like, they didn't do a bleeping thing. I don't know. The only way you could go is under here. You can't.
Not say bleeping. Kids might be watching.
It's a shame. It's such a good baseball town. They really support the team. 71 wins last season. Their total 74.5. The division is better. I think. I mean, the Padres are better. Arizona is better. LA is better. We'll get to the Giants. They're not. But every team is better in the division. They also had a great last year. 16 games. They won 10 of them in extra innings. That's going to flip this year. It happens every year like that. You win some of those, then you lose them. Last year they did well. I could only lean toward the under here. And again, if you're leaning on the under and you're thinking of doing it, I wouldn't wait much longer because you're right, Howard. If they make a trade, like we were talking about some of the other teams, and they trade Arenado, this 74.5 is a 72. It's a 70. I mean, this is the kind of impact player that's going to move this down. I mean, Arenado's a 4 or 5 WAR player. Mm-hmm. So you could make the case to bring it to 70. I wouldn't see them doing that, but I would see a -2 on the wins for sure.
All right, so there you go. Them and the Cubs are the two teams. You got to bet that now if you're looking at the under before they start trading guys away.
For sure.
Final team, here we go. Welcome to your San Francisco Giants. The Bay Area is getting even more disgusting. They signed a guy today. They signed 2 guys today. They brought him in who actually lowered the average age for this team from 38 to 37.5. I mean, they just bring in Hunter Pence, Nick Vincent, the reliever. This is a team that is just, I mean, come on. Longoria is old and done. Crawford's old and done. Belt turns 32 this year. He hasn't been productive. I can't even imagine putting Buster Posey behind the plate for more than like 2 games a week at this point.
No, they have no choice. Yeah, this will be the pick of the year for us here. Yeah, this will be it. Look, I want to throw some qualifiers on this too. Farhan Zaidi is now the general manager of the Giants, and he's doing, I think, what needed to be done for a long time with the Giants. And there's a lot of pressure, Howard. You live out there in the Bay Area. You got to win in San Francisco. You got that beautiful park there. They have not been able to start over. It's like they have just refused to do it, and it appears that they're doing it now. Now, they haven't torn the whole thing down, but I don't think it's Farhan Zaidi's fault because you can't move Longoria. Buster Posey is immovable. Mm-hmm. It would take a miracle for them to be able to trade Brandon Belt. I mean, they're going to have to eat some money. That's a possibility. Samardzija's making $60 million the next 3 years. Johnny Cueto's making $50 million the next 2 years. These are the worst contracts in baseball. And if Farhan Zaidi had his way, those guys would all be gone. All of them. They would trade everyone. If you're the Giants, Howard, be realistic. Look at this division. You're not beating the Dodgers. You have no chance. You're so much worse than them. You have no chance of beating Arizona. You probably have no chance of even coming close to San Diego. So they're looking at it and they're going, this is the year to not win. It's the right thing to do. Like, this is what they should be doing. So I don't begrudge them for doing it. Staggering numbers up against the Giants going into this year. 38 one-run wins. 10 more one-run wins than any team in Major League Baseball. The best and most wins in extra innings of any team in the big leagues with 12.
Oh, they had that 1 month last year that was just mind-numbing, where they actually thought they had a chance.
And you know what? A negative too. You lose Bruce Bochy, you bring in Gabe Kapler. I don't think Kapler is a negative or a positive, but he's definitely not a positive at this point. No. And there's no like keeping the band around. And you lost Madison Bumgarner too. Like I just think that this total is way too high. I think the Giants are going to lose 100 games this year. The only player that they added of any legitimacy was Kevin Gausman, to the rotation. And why did they do that? So they could
it's
trade him.
It's so cute that you say legitimacy. That's adorable.
They're going to trade. Okay. They're going to trade him in July. They're going to trade Kevin Gausman. They're going to hope he makes 14 good starts, and they're going to trade him in July. Another thing too. I mean, I could keep going on and on. Unlike last year, where our best one was Toronto. Toronto, you thought, okay, well, they're going to bring up Vladimir Guerrero Jr. They're going to bring up Bo Bichette. They're going to bring up some good. And you know what? Toronto finished September good. Giants don't have anybody to bring up. The Giants don't have any impact rookies. They have Julio Ramos and Joey Bart. They're not ready. I mean, at the most you would see them is in September. And guess what? September, you can't call anybody up anymore. You can only call up 26 guys total or 28 total. So going under hard on the under here on the Giants. They could avoid 100 losses, but their two best players adding up to 10 WAR last year, Madison Bumgarner and Kevin Pillar. They just gave Pillar away. They traded Madison Bumgarner. They did not replace those players. I think that they are at least 10 wins worse than they were last year. And if they can get out from under those other deals that we just talked about, it's my belief they would trade them all. They would trade every single one of them. Sure. And by the way, all these rumors about them being involved with Castellanos and Ozuna and all that, they didn't sign any of those guys. Now it's Puig. They're not going to sign him. They signed Hunter Pence. That's it. That's it. They're not doing anything else. They're doing it the right way. They're collecting some of Yolmer Sanchez on a 1-year deal. They're collecting some of these assets that they're going to be able to trade in July, and that's the end of it. And remember, whenever you're looking at these win totals and you're thinking that you're leaning or you're not sure on a certain way, take a look at the one-run games that the team finished in the year before. And if it's skewed one way or the other, that thing normalizes or sometimes shifts completely the other way every single year without fail. It is not a predictable stat. And their guy they would win all those one-run games last year, Howard, how would they win those one-run games? They'd bring in Will Smith at the end of the game. The end.
The end. And scene.
It's an under.
I love it. It's an under, and that's the one. That's the big one we're going with this year. And I love it, man. Listen, Toronto was a great pick last year. You said it when we first started doing these live streams that you're always going to have one. You've got a great track record with these. Like if we went back and we looked at last year's streams, even your leans were dead on accurate. So I mean that was one of the things that and when you and I talked this year about doing them, I've got a lot of notes taken. We'll just put it that way. And I'm going to play a lot of these, and I'm going to play these Giants on the under quick before they sign.
Well, I mean, the Westgate has a low number, too low. The Westgate. They, I feel like they must have heard me on the radio. Honestly, they put that thing like lower than any other book in Vegas. It's like 68.5. And again, that's ridiculous at that point. If you're not getting any value on it, like you're seeing every other book with 71 or 70.5. You want to make sure that you do your best there. The other thing too, and I looked into this with the Giants. I think I sent. If I'm not mistaken, did I send you the text? I don't know who I sent it to. Maybe it was you. The Giants' September schedule this year is brutal, and the other thing that we would be able to do is that you're going to be able to get into the last week or two of the season, Howard. Mm-hmm. And the Giants are going to be plus money in every game. They're playing the Dodgers. They're playing the Diamondbacks. And so if you're sitting on 68 or 69 wins, you're like, oh my gosh, like this analysis is wrong. It's coming right down to the end. Well, they're going to be plus 300 on the last game of the season. So if just take a couple $100, put it on. How could you possibly take the Giants? You're getting them 3-1. You make you make some of your money back right there, just in case it goes raw. So a lot to like with this one, really.
I love it. I'm in. I'm all in. Go. I'm all in. Anyway. All right. That's going to do it for us here today. Appreciate everybody tuning in to the Wager Alarm live stream. Big thanks to our producer, Matt Sells. Always doing a great job. And that's going to do it for us. Next week, yes, we'll pick a day. We'll announce it through the morning alarm as to which day it's going to be. But we are going to tackle some of those home run and player props that we like. So, Craig, any final thoughts?
Nope. I wish everybody a great weekend. I'm all in. I'm all in on all in.
And, I'm all in on the XFL. So,
oh my gosh, again.
Right, exactly. So that's going to do it for us, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. For Craig Mish, I'm Howard Bender. We'll catch you next time.